Listen closely, because the clock is ticking and the world is about to witness a showdown that will change history. Right now, deep inside the heavily guarded rooms of Tehran, leaders are making a choice. They are looking at a line drawn firmly in the sand by President Donald Trump. Make no mistake, most people walking the streets today simply do not realize the massive storm that is about to break if Iran decides to cross that line. For years, the world watched the games. The endless talk, the backroom deals, the weak handshakes that led to nothing but more chaos in the Middle East. The old way of doing business meant empty threats. A foreign power would cross a line, and the old politicians would just draw another line a little further back. But those days are completely over. The Trump administration does not play those tired old Washington games. When this president gives a warning, it is not a suggestion. It is a promise etched in stone. Think about what a warning from Donald Trump actually means. The world has seen it before. It means absolute, overwhelming strength. It means achieving peace through unmatched power. Iran is currently testing the waters, poking the bear, seeing if the rules have somehow changed back to the old, soft ways. They are pushing their luck with their proxy groups, stirring up trouble, and acting like they run the entire region. But they are making a fatal miscalculation. They think they are dealing with the old guard, who worry more about what the global elites think than about American security. They are dead wrong. The warning sent to Iran is crystal clear, and it is very simple. Stop the aggression. Stop funding the chaos. Back down. Because if they ignore this warning, the consequences will not be a harsh letter or a stern speech at the United Nations. The consequences will be a swift and total dismantling of everything they have built. Most folks turn on the evening news and think this is just another political spat thousands of miles away. It is not. This is the exact moment the entire balance of global power shifts. If Iran turns a blind eye and pushes forward, they are pulling the pin on a grenade in their own backyard. The Trump Doctrine is not about dragging the country into endless, muddy wars. It is about ending the threat before it even gets off the ground. It is about bringing the hammer down so hard and so fast that the enemy never even thinks about trying it again. The machinery is already in place. The economic squeeze is tighter than a vice, but the military option, the true heavy hand of American might, is fully loaded and waiting for the signal. People truly do not understand the sheer scale of what gets unleashed if Tehran decides to test that warning. Consider the actual gears in motion. When Tehran decides to ignore a direct warning from Donald Trump, the very first thing that drops is a complete financial blackout. Politicians of the past used to treat sanctions like a mild slap on the wrist. Not anymore. The Trump administration uses economic pressure like a massive sledgehammer. They do not just target government leaders, they choke out the lifeblood of the entire regime. The oil completely stops flowing out of their ports. Every hidden bank account is frozen solid. Any foreign nation that even thinks about doing a single dollar of business with Tehran gets hit with the exact same crushing penalty. It is an iron wall built overnight, starving the regime of the cash they use to fund endless chaos. But the financial crush is merely the opening move. The real shockwave comes next. Most people watching at home do not realize that the military, under this strong leadership, simply does not do half measures anymore. There will be no troops stuck in the desert mud for 20 endless years. That is the failed playbook of the past. The current playbook is absolute precision and unmatched devastation from above. If Iran ignores the warning, the sky will literally fall on their most prized military possessions. Those nuclear facilities buried deep under Rocky Mountains are not safe. The advanced weapons, the silent stealth aircraft, the crippling cyber warfare, it all gets unleashed in a synchronized wave of destruction. The regime will wake up to find their entire military command completely wiped off the map in a single night. And who will step up to help them? Absolutely nobody. The radical leaders will look around and find themselves totally alone. The surrounding nations respect absolute strength. The neighbors know Donald Trump does not bluff, and they desperately want to be on the winning side of history. The regime is left isolated in the dark, with no funding, destroyed military assets, and zero allies. This is the brutal reality of ignoring a final warning. It is not just a temporary defeat, it is the total collapse of their power structure. The globe is currently watching a masterclass in achieving peace through overwhelming strength, and the timer is ticking down to zero. Look past the immediate shock of the military strikes and the crushing weight of the frozen bank accounts. What happens inside the borders of Iran when the regime is suddenly stripped of its power? This is the secret the mainstream media completely refuses to broadcast. The Iranian people are watching very closely. For decades, they have suffered under the heavy boots of a radical leadership that steals their national wealth to tund. Terror across the globe. When the Trump administration enforces this warning, it completely shatters the illusion of the regime's invincibility. The leaders in Tehran rule entirely by fear. They project the image of an untouchable fortress. But the very second the American hammer falls, that fortress crumbles into fine dust. The ordinary citizens of Iran, who have bravely protested in the streets for years, will finally see their oppressors for what they truly are: weak, isolated, and completely defenseless against genuine American strength. The regime will not just be fighting precision missiles from the sky. They will be facing a massive, unstoppable uprising from their own starving, angry citizens on the ground. The total collapse will be spectacular, tearing the corrupt political system apart from the inside out. The ripple effect of this action does not stop at the Iranian border. This is about sending a massive shockwave across the entire planet. Watch the other bad actors waiting in the wings, and watch the hostile nations studying how this unfolds. Under weak, traditional leadership, those nations get bold and test the boundaries. But when they see the absolute devastation brought upon Tehran for crossing Donald Trump, the permanent silence will fall over the enemies of freedom. They will immediately realize that the era of American appeasement is dead and permanently buried. This single decisive act of unmatched strength secures the entire globe. It forces every rogue dictator to tear up their plans and step quickly back in line. They understand exactly what the Trump Doctrine means now. You push the line, and you lose everything. Most people going about their daily lives are totally unaware that enforcing this single warning is the key to locking down global security for a generation. The board is set, the pieces are moving, and the old failed. The ways of the world are about to be blown away by the harsh wind of reality. Consider the vast, hidden web of terror that stretches across the Middle East for decades. The regime in Tehran has acted as the grand puppet master, pulling the strings of violent proxy groups. They funnel billions of dollars to fund chaos in places most people cannot even find on a map. But what happens to the puppets when the puppet master is suddenly eliminated? When Donald Trump enforces this final warning, that massive river of dirty money dries up in an instant. The weapons shipments stop. The training camps are shut down in total panic. This is the brilliant strategy that the so-called television experts simply fail to grasp. You do not win by fighting endless skirmishes with every small group of radicals hiding in the desert. You win by going straight for the source. If Iran is foolish enough to ignore the warning, their entire network of terror collapses overnight. Groups that have terrorized the region for generations will suddenly find their pockets completely empty and their arsenals entirely bare. The foot soldiers will abandon their posts the very second the paychecks stop coming. The endless cycle of violence that the old politicians told you was just a permanent fact of life will suddenly grind to a complete halt. And right in the middle of this collapse, something truly miraculous happens. The historic peace deals that the Trump administration already laid the heavy groundwork for will explode into full view. The Abraham Accords were just the opening act. When the surrounding nations see the dark shadow of Tehran permanently lifted, A new dawn of massive prosperity and open trade begins. Former bitter enemies will freely shake hands because the main source of their deadly conflict has been totally removed from the board. This is the true, undeniable meaning of peace through strength. The old guard in Washington honestly believed you had to buy peace with giant pallets of cash delivered in the dead of night. That method completely failed. The new reality proves that lasting peace is built on absolute, unyielding resolve. By holding the line against Iran, the entire Middle East transforms from a ticking powder keg into a secure zone of this stability. The entire world becomes instantly safer, and the global economy breathes a massive sigh of relief. The outcome is clearly written on the wall for anyone brave enough to read it. Now I want you to look right here, right back home, at our own streets. What does all of this mean for the hardworking American, waking up, drinking their coffee, and heading to work? The talking heads on television will try to scare you. They will say that taking a hard line against Iran will make gas prices explode and ruin our economy. That is exactly what happens under weak leadership. But they completely ignore the ultimate trump card this administration holds. When you enforce peace through strength overseas, you pair it with absolute energy dominance right here at home. Think about it. The old politicians kept us chained to the Middle East. They begged foreign kings and radical leaders just to keep the lights on and the engines running, not Donald Trump. If Iran tries to disrupt the global oil supply because they are backed into a corner, it will not even put a dent in the American machine. We are drilling, we are pumping, we have more liquid gold under our own feet than anywhere else on earth. The regime in Tehran thinks they can hold the world hostage with their oil, but that threat is totally useless against a country that produces its own. In fact, the American economy will hit a massive, historic boom when the world sees that the United States is no longer playing games. Global money comes flooding back into our borders. Investors want safety. They want stability. They want to put their money behind the strongest horse in the race. While the regime in Iran goes totally bankrupt, American factories will be firing up. American workers will be bringing home bigger paychecks. The fake news media will never connect the dots for you. But the truth is simple. When America projects unbreakable power abroad, it builds unshakable prosperity at home. The weak politicians in Washington will scream. They will cry in front of the cameras, begging to go back to the old, soft treaties. They are terrified of a president who actually does what he says. But the working men and women of this country will clearly see the results: a safe world and a booming economy. Iran is looking at a president who has totally changed the math. The bluff is over. The American engine is roaring, completely independent and untouchable, leaving Tehran with absolutely zero leverage. They are out of time, out of money, and completely out of options. Stop scrolling and listen to the alarms going off in the political establishment right now. The Washington insiders are in full-blown panic mode. The old politicians built entire careers on bowing down to foreign leaders and signing weak deals. When the Trump administration delivers this crushing blow to Tehran, it does not just destroy a hostile regime overseas, it completely shatters the old political machine back home. The elites are terrified because their massive failures are finally being exposed. For decades, the mainstream media told the public that dealing with Iran required endless patience and giant pallets of picked secret cash. They promised that showing real strength would cause a global meltdown. But what happens when Donald Trump proves those talking heads totally wrong? When the hammer drops on the Iranian regime and the Middle East becomes peaceful, the fake experts are left with absolutely nothing to say. The world will clearly see that the foreign policy geniuses were either completely foolish or entirely corrupt. This decisive action against Iran is the ultimate reality check. The military brass, the actual patriots who know how to win, have been waiting for a strong commander who lets them do their job. The coordinates are already locked in tight. The massive weapons are fueled and waiting on the runway. The sheer technological terror that will be unleashed from the sky is something the modern world has never witnessed. It is not a prolonged, messy war. It is a surgical, overwhelming display of dominance that ends the fight before the enemy can even lace up their boots. The hostile regime in Tehran is currently staring down the barrel of the most advanced military force ever assembled in history. The administration, drawing that firm line in the sand, simply does not flinch. The weak elites will scream on television, begging to go back to the days of appeasement, but the message sent to the enemies of freedom is permanent. You do not test this leadership. If Tehran makes the fatal mistake of ignoring this final warning, the history books will record it as the shortest, most decisive collapse of a regime in the modern era. The bluff has been officially called. The cards are on the table. And the house always wins. Listen to me very carefully, because this is the absolute bottom line that the history books will record. We are standing at the very edge of a totally new era. For years, the weak politicians in charge tried to manage the decline of American power. They apologized, they bowed down, and they paid off the exact enemies who laughed right behind their backs. But when the leaders in Iran look at Donald Trump, they are not looking at a standard politician. They are looking at a solid brick wall of pure, unbending American will. If they choose to ignore this final, crystal clear warning, they are choosing their own immediate end. It truly is that simple. The radicals running Tehran are sitting in their underground bunkers right now, sweating bullets. They finally realize the old tricks simply do not work anymore. They cannot use their hidden proxy armies to cause trouble. They cannot use the global media to spin a totally false story. The radar screens are lit up, the coordinates are completely locked, and the entire massive weight of the United States military is poised and ready to strike with a righteous fury this world has not seen in many generations. Make no mistake, this is not about starting another new, endless war in the desert sand. It is about ending the threat of global terror, completely and permanently. It is about drawing a firm line that actually means something real. When the smoke finally clears and the dust settles, the entire map of the Middle East will be completely redrawn. It will not be redrawn by weak paper treaties, but by absolute, undeniable strength. The brave Iranian people will finally have a real chance to breathe, totally free from the crushing grip of a corrupt regime that stole their bright future. The surrounding nations will thrive in a brand new era of unprecedented peace and wealth, fully secured by an American president who finally put the safety of the free world way ahead of weak political correctness. So I tell you to keep your eyes wide open. The timer has almost run out. The ultimate warning has been delivered loudly and clearly for the whole world to hear. The very next move belongs entirely to Iran. If they are foolish enough to step over that line in the sand, the American response will be so incredibly fast, so absolute, and so utterly devastating that the entire globe will never, ever be the same again.